Another valid point that I would like to make concerning the custody scam and scandal that you guys just did to me while you're trying to say that I've been disabled. Apparently, my dad, Donald, says that I've been disabled since I was in middle school. Well, you guys can look back through the messages whenever I was working at Pizza Hut. It's been a little over 3 years ago with the account that I would have used the entire time, basically, that I worked for Pizza Hut. I also worked at a couple different places. And while I was working at these places, my dad online on Messenger was trying to get me, he kept trying to talk me into getting disability, which is something that they've been trying to do for a long time. In the messages, you can see where he is trying to get me to get an ancestry test. And so, if you need to search through, if you need any keywords for that time frame in that account, he's going to talk about get Social Security checks, Mexico, the word Mexico. He says all you got to do is get these Social Security checks and you can go live in Mexico like a king. Get Social Security checks from the United States to live while you go live in Mexico like a king. You'll just be able to live like a king off your Social Security in Mexico or whatever. So why is it that my dad, just a little over a few years ago, was, on Messenger typing to me from Texas, okay, while I was in West Virginia, and he's telling me that I should go get on Social Security. That as soon as I start getting Social Security checks, I'll be like rich and famous practically. The only difference is that I have to go from here to a country that's really hot and doesn't have the same resources, but ultimately might be a better place than this. I mean, realistically, now that I'm like weighing it all out, like I'm not really sure. Everybody's always led me to believe that, the US was such a better place or whatever, but I'm just not sure about that anymore. So yeah, as far as, lies in court, lies to get custody, lies to use someone's identity, lies, deception to get fraudulent Social Security benefits and, one of your family members' names. They also got me married on paper. No one ever told me about that. I guess I was just so disabled that I also didn't need to know who I was married to this whole time. And I've just been so disabled that I had to take care of all my kids by myself the entire time. And if I was so disabled, why is it that I was working at Pizza Hut and was managing a fucking Pizza Hut while you guys were getting Social Security checks for me, while you guys had jobs and houses? I didn't have a house. I paid $700 or $800 a month for an apartment that you guys went in and destroyed. They put me married on paper to somebody that I wasn't with. Or if I was with him, it was 20 years ago. It's been over 20 years ago. And then they also had me have a kid by someone who I don't know. So, they were able to use me and my identity in every way possible. Basically, every different way that you could think of to, use a human body, that's what they did. And what they didn't do to me, they did to the kids, or they did to the neighbors, or, and if while I was in Texas the last time, everybody was just telling me, what a burden I was and about how they didn't want to help. And, that, since I struggled so much that I needed to get Social Security benefits because they didn't want to help me with the kids. And, there was no way for me to. One time, my family even told me that they were going to help me go to college, that they were going to help watch the kids for me so that I could go to college, which is what happened for them so that they could go to college and start their careers. Other family members watched us kids so that they could begin to work. They didn't have to pay for childcare. They didn't have to sit in an apartment by themselves without any help or assistance or any support network at all. None of them had to go through anything like that. And they didn't just keep me like that for a little while. They kept me like that the entire time. The only reason why I was allowed to work at Pizza Hut for a second was because they stole my kids and told me that I was required to work because it was during the COVID pandemic when no one else was working. They were trying to get me to die from COVID or get really sick and disabled from COVID. So the whole time that everyone else was allowed to just chill and sit in their houses, I had to go out and go to work. I had to go out and find places that were hiring where everyone was still working during COVID. And I had to work while I had COVID, and everyone else worked while they had COVID too. Every 3 or 4 months, we would all catch COVID again and have to work through having COVID with COVID. The only way that they would let you take off work is if you got that 10-day pass saying that you had COVID, and that meant that you could just go home and do nothing for 10 days. And then you had to show up and, get right back to taking your drug tests and going to work and everything else. There was no break time. Okay. And that was the only break that I got in all the years that they had my kid. The only break I got for those 2.5 years were the 2 or 3 times that I had COVID. And it was such a relief to catch COVID. It was a blessing straight from God to catch COVID and to not have to show up and be involved in the fucking bullshit that they wanted me to be involved in. To work at a place where I didn't want to work, when I didn't want to work, when I didn't have to work, but they made me work so that I could have this apartment, so that I could buy all this stuff and have all this stuff so that I could lose it immediately after they gave my kid back to me, which I told my kids was going to happen. I let them know. I was like, there's no way I'm actually going to be able to maintain what I have here, what they've, made me build up to get you guys back. I was like, I hope you know that this is not a reliable thing. This is all going to crumble the moment that CPS steps out of our lives. I hope you know that, because there's no way that I'm actually going to be able to maintain this. And no one gave a shit whether or not I was going to be able to maintain it. No one ever asked that. No one cared. No one fucking knew a damn thing about me. They just knew that they were finally supposed to give the kids back, that they'd got all the cameras out of my house or whatever, that they were finally, or I don't even know if they got all the cameras out of my house yet then. They might have actually left the cameras in the house right up until the very end. So these people had done their best to try to make me disabled. And in some ways, they actually had made me disabled. Had I been tested at the right time by the proper people, they would have deemed me disabled, most certainly. Since then, things have changed a good bit. But that's what happens when you have a family who wants you to be disabled, who's putting stuff in your food and drink all the time and, hiring the neighbors to, get you strung out and, making sure that there's always somebody drinking with you, doing drugs with you, taking you out to eat or giving you food that they did something to, So my family acted like that they were desperate for me to get on Social Security. And that was around the time frame that my grandfather died, or a little bit after my grandfather died. So that's been, it's been going on 13 years ago or better now. And you would even be able to see information about that in text messages between even Gerald and I. There's even some text messages where Gerald is yelling at me for missing a doctor's appointment with the Social Security Administration. But my family and them had gotten me so fucked up that my pupils were dilated already, and I didn't want to go in to an appointment for the Social Security Administration while I was strung out. And it was like the only thing that I did was get messed up, because that was like, it was almost like that was the only thing I was allowed to do. Like, I would even try to go in, lay down with the kids, sleep, rest, and stay away from certain people. And my grandmother would just raise hell, dude. Like, it was really weird. It was like everything that anybody could do to, and then I think that there was even a time or two whenever I was like, I'm not calling anybody. I'm staying away from everybody. And then all of a sudden, like, my grandma would come out and be like, your friends are in the yard asking for you, you know? I caught on that people were trying to take me out, but I already knew that I made it because, as I've said before, I already saw ahead to a point in the future that I still haven't made it to. And there's a Bible story, actually, the Apostle Paul, he talks about how he gets into a shipwreck after he's been given instruction by God to make it to a certain island to do something. He gets into a shipwreck. Well, he tries to tell everybody, like, just stay with me and you'll be fine. Because he knows that he makes it to the other side because he's got instructions. That's why God sent him. God's not going to give somebody instructions and then they die along the way and they're not able to fulfill his instructions. That's fucking retarded. Okay? So anyways, that's what happened here in my situation, is that God gave me instructions whenever I was a teenager. And so I'm not actually going to die until maybe forever. I might not ever die, but if I ever do die, it's not going to be until long after the instructions that God gave me are fulfilled. Or it could even be briefly after, but I don't think so. I think that I end up living potentially longer than, I'm not going to say that yet. But anyways, I already knew that I made it. So like everybody else who wanted to mess around, that's, those are mistakes that they made, or, ways that they found out the same thing, the same truth that I know. They found out too. How is it that my family was trying to talk me into getting Social Security, and, I had to reschedule all these Social Security hearings, or, appointments, and, I never made it. I never made it like I was supposed to like pretty much any of them. And that was so messed up at the time. And that my ex-boyfriend was actually yelling at me in text messages and shit like that. And so many people were yelling at me for not getting this Social Security money because the whole reason that they even put up with me was because they all thought I was about to get a Social Security check. And I used it too. I used it to like string them along, like, I'm about to start getting Social Security checks, you guys. And then, like, instead of them pressing it more and getting me on Social Security like they wanted, they sent me back to West Virginia, where I, within a few months, got pregnant and sobered up immediately after finding out that I was pregnant. Sobered up, which was something I'd been wanting to do for a really long time, and I didn't know how. I'd even asked my family if they would please put me in rehab or let me go to Alcoholics Anonymous classes or something like that. And they told me that they would not. I was told that I could either go to a mental institution, or I could go to jail, or I could die, but that I was not allowed to do something like go to rehab, which would show an effort towards not wanting to be fucked up. They needed me to be fucked up, or they needed me to be in a mental institution, but they definitely didn't want me to be going to Alcoholic Anonymous classes once a week or whatever. They were like, absolutely not. They were like, no, we'll put you in a mental institution if you need any help. And I definitely didn't need or want to go to a mental institution. And also, like, while my kids and I were held hostage, like, we definitely went without. I definitely went without my entire life. I would make sure that my kids at least had what they needed, but I couldn't really afford anything other than that. I mean, I couldn't really afford much more than that. Even like in the ghettos back in the day, I think that every month I would spend $20 on pot, which to some people might be a big deal, but to people who understand money and drugs and all that, like $20 is nothing compared to how much people spend on weed, or even how much I would spend on weed if I had it every month now. Like, I was actually hella humble. I wasn't wearing jewelry, makeup. I didn't dress hot and sexy. I wasn't trying to put myself out there. I knew that my family and whoever had gotten all these people to basically like hold me hostage, or like that movie, The Truman Show, like keep an eye on me and like keep control over me, and make sure that that I wasn't able to actually do anything, accomplish anything. And like, I honestly thought that if I was just like really good, and that if I really developed my character, and, you know, that if I was a really good person and I was really giving and loving, and if I was really genuine and kind-hearted, that that someone would eventually like care more about me than they would about what my family wanted them to do, or what other haters or other nasty whoever involved wanted them to do. Like, I hoped that, like, I really hoped that, like, if I was just really good, or if I just, like, I couldn't do anything while I was being held captive and while I was being like watched and monitored and stuff. But like, the only thing that I really could do was just to try to be as beautiful of a person as I could, so that whoever was attacking or targeting me might reconsider or examine themselves. I mean, I didn't really know what else to do. Like, did you give these people a reason to hate you and to attack you like this? And, or were they expecting you to improve your behavior in some way? And you're just supposed to be, some extra special advanced mind reader who knows exactly what you did wrong without anybody telling you. And, obviously they're not trying to get me to improve my behavior if they're just trying to execute me. Obviously if they're so concerned with just psychological torture and abuse, they're not going to be concerned with your personal growth, or, and then just to have worked, like I said, I worked through COVID. I worked at Huddle House. I worked at this nice Mexican restaurant, Don Patron's. I worked at the Bicentennial Inn. I worked at Sipapu Ski Resort. I worked, worked at Five Star Burger and Taos. I mean, I was poisoned by my boss when I worked out there. I've been pretty loud about that. I was a carpenter's apprentice for the Amish. I mean, I've escaped traffickers and murderers across the entire nation. I have escaped sex traffickers, human traffickers, men who cut organs out of women who they SA to death. I have run from those people all across the United States. I have escaped hand after 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 hundreds of fucking people. So you're not gonna fucking try to tell me that I've been disabled since I was 16 years old, or since I was in middle school, and everybody's known it. Fucking blatant fucking lie. And it's really fucked up that fucking lie, that motherfuckers were able to take that lie, and all fucking 10 of them were able to use it to take my fucking kid away from me. I didn't commit any fucking crimes. I didn't commit a single fucking crime to get my kid taken away either fucking times that they did this to me. 2.5 years each time. It's been 2.5 years each time that they've taken my kid. I know I made a video within the last few days where I mentioned Sandy poisoning me. And I have made a mistake of saying that was a year and a half ago. I'm sorry, I make mistakes with time frames sometimes if I don't have everything written down and like very thoughtfully written in advance. That's been over 2 years ago. Because whenever they poisoned me like that, that was directly after they took my kid. because I just got a car and had the money to get a place right after they took my kid, and they couldn't let me just get him back that quickly. They were actually pissed that I already had everything ready to get my kid back within 2 months of them taking him. That I was so dedicated to getting my kid back that I went and slept under a fucking bridge, under the fucking road. I slept in a fucking tunnel on a fucking sun visor that I found on the ground. That's how I started to be able to work so that I could get my kid back, so that he wouldn't end up with these sex traffickers who you guys had just set me up to experience. They had just set up these human sacrifices. These women got killed with horses, and then they chased us across the nation and took my kid away from me. And then they've spent the entire time after they took him chasing me across the nation even more, trying to get rid of me, and they couldn't get rid of me in time. So they just worked up this entire fake trial hearing thing, during which they told me that I've been disabled since I was in middle school, unbeknownst to me. And that even though I've raised 3 fucking kids, basically, that all of a sudden this kid has to be taken away from me. Oh, and that I'm schizophrenic, according to them, without me ever being diagnosed with schizophrenia. Yeah, so not only were they trying to say that I'm disabled, but they specifically knew what I was disabled with, which is kind of funny because the last time that my dad told me that I was disabled, he said that I was disabled with bipolar disorder. He didn't say schizophrenia. But during this court hearing, they said schizophrenia specifically, which is not something that I have. So they gave a specific diagnosis that they're claiming is from medical records, which means that they released my medical information into a room full of people and onto a bunch of different people who I don't fucking know, who I can't even see because my lawyer can't even send me a link that is not broken so that I can actually show up to a video hearing. You know, that's supposed to be my sister who has my kid. I didn't recognize her voice. I couldn't see her face, so I don't know who my kid is actually with. I don't know who the man is that they live with. Apparently there's a problem with the guy or a problem with their marriage or something because they kept calling her Miss Cross, but I'm Miss Cross. So why are you calling her Miss Cross? Why does she sound like me and she doesn't sound like my sister? I heard that I had a twin sister, and I'm pretty sure that I saw her over video surveillance. So did you guys replace my sister Cassidy with some twin sister of mine? Like, I don't understand what's happening here. And also, you guys have my brother Sean. I did make an adult protective services report and send the cops out there to ask him if he's even fucking okay or still alive. The cop actually did call me back and tell me that Sean was okay, or that he said that he was okay. And apparently Sean says that he's not using the internet because of his schizophrenia. So I don't know what people were doing as far as the videos go with my brother Sean, but apparently whatever you did fucked with his head, and he's not even using the fucking shit anymore. But, you know, I could imagine if something like what happened to me happened to him, how he would not want to use the internet anymore. And honestly, after going through this, like, the internet to me is an evil beast. Like, this is a monster. They've been able to use the internet against me, my own social media accounts, everything that has to do with the internet. They have figured out a way to use it against me and to humiliate me and to just completely ruin my life. It takes a lot of extra hard work on my end to be able to actually use any of this to my advantage. Extra hard work that it extra takes me to be able to use a device that you guys have tracked, monitored, mirrored, that you guys are able to interfere with. You guys can watch me try to make written complaints. And, you know what I mean? I have to be really, really sly and slick if I even want to make a single report. I can't even apparently do it from the comfort of my own phone. So anyways, there's some more information. You know, if my dad wants to continue to lie and play in people's faces, and this actually does, and it should have already become a federal, like, huge investigation wherein My dad will hopefully go to prison for saying that kind of shit about me. My sister, too. Everyone who is involved in helping have my child taken from me. Every single fucking CPS worker. Every CPS worker who had any part to do with my case. I hope that she ends up in a fucking prison cell. Every judge in this case. Every judge. Every attorney that I've been given, all the fake court-appointed attorneys and stuff, I hope every one of them, all of them, every single one of those people needs to be in prison for at least 10 years for what they've done in this situation. This is fucking severe. The judge who presided over my case within the last couple of weeks, her name was LaDonna. I could barely hear what she was saying. I did not actually realize the tone difference